Hi, welcome back to CS170 fall session. Um, I guess apologies for posting my videos a little bit later than I normally do. I have actually I have infections in both my eyes, my left eye and my right eye. So actually I have a hard time seeing stuff right now. But I'll try to get the videos out for you today. I did manage to get the loops for chapter 20 out yesterday. Hopefully you have a chance to take a look at that, and I'll try to get the arrays out there for today. But anyway, so putting aside my health issues and my visibility issues, uh, I want to kind of just maybe address some of the feedback that's come back in terms of the midterm feedback that we've gathered from people. I've also obviously got email from people directly when I ask people directly for some feedback. So I'm going to pick up on a couple of those points. Some of them I think I can maybe address or adjust. Some of them may be a little bit more challenging to address, and I can use some ideas from people. You can send me email directly on how we might address some of those items, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so let me hit on a couple of the points. I mean, I think people kind of mentioned that in terms of question and answers and whatnot, like you're able to send email to me or to one of the TAs maybe and get some responses fairly quickly, but that maybe Piazza hasn't been used as much. And I've reminded the TAs, and myself personally will respond to the appropriate Piazza questions that are posted out there. So the only thing I can say is, like, I would just encourage everyone with questions to try as much as you can to leverage Piazza. If only a couple of people leverage it, then you lose the benefit of having like basically a group using Piazza. So do try to make use of Piazza more when you have some more general questions that other people can answer, right? Or myself or whatever. I've asked the TAs to look at Piazza frequently and respond as quickly as possible. Okay. So I guess the other aspect that people mentioned was basically like the organization of where everything is on campus, that it seems confusing. So I think the only thing just to mention here is that you can see there's multiple instructors that's teaching 170. I'm teaching the asynchronous class, but you can see Professor Hajdu and Fuentes is actually teaching like the face-to-face, and we're all sharing the same canvas. So that's why we've kind of created like our own sections in here, like subspaces to have things in there. But there are some common shared stuff that's out here, which that's between all of us, like all three of the professors that are teaching this class. So I try my best to include all the relevant stuff for the asynchronous all in one page here that you can go to, right? So you can go here, you can hit the class announcements, you can hit Piazza, you can hit the student schedule, you can see the assignments, you can see like different class materials that we've uploaded in one place. You can see the modules and the weekly resources. You can see the quizzes and exams, the lab hours, the syllabus, and then I've tried to break out week by week all of the lectures and the videos. I mean, the slides, the lecture slides and the videos that go along with them up and down here. And they're broken out by week. Now, some people suggested that maybe we can break them up into smaller videos, which is possible. Actually, before this semester, that's what we used to do. We used to break out into many small videos, almost like very small topics. And then this used to be a much longer list because we break out into much smaller videos, which is fine. I can do more of that. Then, some people kind of commented that maybe it was too many videos, that it was hard for them to, remember which videos they saw they didn't see. So they wanted less small videos and big video, right? So we'll try to find something in between, right? Maybe not one big monolithic lecture video, but maybe 2 or 3 or something like that. So we'll see. And then there were some comments about whether I should put the extra credit under assignments, which is over here. So there's a couple of things with that. Number one, like the assignments area is used by all classes within CS170. So I can't really put stuff in there without confusing the students from the other lectures. And really the extra credit, there's twofold. One is just to kind of do just a quick double check to see that you're watching the video. So that's sort of like how I handle attendance at the group lecture level. Obviously, the TAs are taking your attendance with Google Sheets. But the other aspect of why I do this is, I try to give like some pretty big hints as to what's going to be on your exam, right? So I'll mention them during the lecture and say, this is going to be on your exam. Make sure you study it. And, I actually ask the extra credit questions, on that to essentially help you study, right? You can take notes on it. Obviously, when you're taking an online exam, you can refer to your notes, right? So I'm asking you to practice these things because they're going to be on the exam. So for example, yesterday when I recorded the lecture for chapter 20 with the loops, I told you something like this will be on the exam. I was halfway tempted to ask you to do extra credit on that, but I was thinking maybe what I can do with the extra credit is, I'll just kind of point it out and, you can pick from one of those things. I'll mention a couple of things which I think will be on the exam that you should practice, take notes on, and you can just pick one of those things, right, to do it. And, look, you can just type this in word for word, exactly what you see here, if that's what you want to do. In some of the past extra credit, I know people have taken some creativity and mixed it around, like they changed the number of like nested loops, they changed the step count on the rows, they went negative on the rows and columns, let's say, whatever, right? They played around with it, and that was kind of their way to just experiment with this code and have it good in their mind when it comes down to answering these questions in the exam. Now, will the exam question be exactly like this? Probably not. Maybe, right? But there's a good chance it's really going to be like this, but it'll be a variation of it, right? Maybe they'll put in like a bigger step function. Maybe they'll use something other than a, document right on the star. They'll do something else, right? But this is the general idea. And I'm telling you, it's going to be on the exam. So you may want to do something with it just for your own practice. So the extra credit doesn't really matter to me. It's more for your benefit to try something and see if you're able to understand that concept, right? Similar to, we look at something like this. Like I was saying yesterday, we talked about global and local variables, and we talked about like going through and basically tracing like a variable, right? So, we'll talk about things like initialization, test, and update, and we'll run it through, and you'll see what's the value for J each time through. Let's say you have a variable like A or ABC or something in here, and trace that through, okay? So it's something like this, where I did the alert here, and it showed it as 15, let's say, coming out here. I mean, we're not going to do something as easy as that, probably. But you're going to probably do something like in here, when J is equal to 2, like what is the answer going to be? Something like that. So, this is another thing you can do extra credit on, right? So I'm gonna maybe, don't feel like the extra credit is a burden to you or something, right? I know you have a lot of work to do and whatnot, but somehow, some way, you must be doing something to study and prepare for the exam, right? So I look at the extra credit as things that you would be doing to study and prepare for the exam anyway. And you don't have to do the extra credit. That's fine. Don't do it, right? But as I mentioned in the beginning part of class, when you do extra credit, it kind of has a significant impact between my extra credit and the TA extra credit that can kind of push you up a grade, right? If you do all of it well. And it does help you to study for the exam, but you don't have to do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, right? So I'll put that out there in terms of extra credit, right? You can play around with these nested loops. You can do it as is. You can do it with a plus sign. You can change the symbol. You can change the step size. Instead of incrementing by 1, maybe you can increment it by 3 or 5, or you can go negative, whatever, right? Or you can do something like this and say, well, okay, if I do this for loop, when the j is equal to 2, answer equals to whatever, right? And you can put like an alert, right? So the alert could be if j equals to 2, and then do an alert for the answer, something like that, right? So you don't even have to tell me what the answer is. You can just run the program, and then I can see right there and then that that's what the answer is, right? So I'll put those two out there for extra credit, and you can do what you want with it. Now, the other thing is, people ask me about, well, the assignments, they're pretty fast paced, and they may not tie necessarily to what's being covered in lecture or what's in the textbook or what the TAs are covering. I'm not really sure about that. Maybe there's some stuff out there that, the assignment that got put together is a little bit broader. So, the HTML, it's pretty broad, right? We're only showing you the basic stuff. But even just the basic stuff, there's like a lot of flexibility on how you do different things in terms of presenting the colors, how you put the layout of the table, how you like nest some of the containers, how you use your cascading style sheets, whatever. There's a couple of ways to kind of address a lot of these things. So, it's pretty difficult to have one lecture cover it all. Okay. And then I would say that just so people are not, if they're not clear as to how these different things come together, it's almost like a division of labor on how we do things, right? So one of the professors will be handling the assignments for the HTML. One of the professors will be handling the assignments for JavaScript, and one will be handling for Excel. So I happen to be the one that handles Excel. I happen to have a lot of experience with Excel from my day job. So I put together assignments for Excel, and I do my best to, try to lay it out very carefully so things are pretty clear. And the truth is, Excel probably, it's a little bit easier to do that than it is with maybe HTML and JavaScript, because there's quite a bit of flexibility on how you can do things, especially there's different versions of HTML and all that kind of stuff, right? But for Excel, it's a little bit more straightforward. It's a little bit more discrete in terms of like, 1 + 1 or whatever. You're doing some calculations, and numbers are numbers, right? So I handle putting together the assignments for Excel. I don't put together the assignments for JavaScript or for HTML, and I don't do the grading, right? So we pass the rubrics to the TAs. The TAs handle all the grading. So if you ask me a question about like why you got some points taken off for your assignment, I'm not really the right person to ask because I didn't grade your assignment. So if you have some question about like whether like you'll take an answer for an assignment, or whether we'll, deal with a free late or whatever, it's something that you need to make sure you talk to the TAs with, because they're the ones that are actually handling the grading, not me. Okay. I only get involved when there's a dispute that can't be resolved between the TA and the student on like the grading of a particular problem, let's say. So other than that, I don't handle the grading aspect of things, right? And I don't really do much in terms of the first groups of assignments, whether it's the HTML or the JavaScript. I mean, I can help troubleshoot, and people have asked me some specific questions during office hour, but that's kind of the gist of it. Okay, but I do happen to put together the Excel assignments. I'm in the middle of actually putting those together right now. So yeah, if you want to ask me a question about Excel assignment, yeah, I can help you. So, I put together an assignment. I do my best to be very clear with it, but when you do things yourself, sometimes you might make certain assumptions and might seem like, oh yeah, it's straightforward, it's there. And you forget certain things, right? Just because you're the one who put it together, right? So it's hard for you to, look at it from scratch. But I do my best to, try to run it from scratch so I can walk through and make sure if I missed describing how a certain function should be done in Excel or whatnot, I make sure I try and catch that as best I can. Now, the other thing that people were asking about was like, why am I learning CS170 and like the stuff that's in there? I mean, look, I'm not the Rutgers administration, so I can't tell you like, who or when or why, the curriculum was put together the way it was. So that's what it is. I can only tell you from my own background, things like HTML, things like JavaScript, things like Excel, as a business person, there are opportunities to be using it. Could there be better things to be doing as a business major from a technology perspective? Could you be doing Python? Could you be doing R? Could you be doing like, more business intelligence type of tooling? Yeah, maybe. But as someone, I actually I have an MBA from Stern in finance. Um, I work for an investment bank, and I've done all of these things, and as an independent business person, I've done stuff in terms of e-commerce. Um, And there's a lot of packages you can buy that will put together a website for you, put together the e-commerce side of things for you. But a lot of times you want to customize things. You want to add some special things so you stand out from other people. You want to do some special offering. And so you do your own customization. So that's why it would be worthwhile, I think, for you to understand HTML and JavaScript to a certain extent. Maybe there's other things you would use more as a business major, maybe. But this is one of those things that's trying to cover like the entire business major. Some people may never touch it again, right? It's just like engineering major, maybe with calculus. Maybe some engineering major will never touch calculus after they graduate. And maybe for others, it's almost like every day they're going to do something with calculus, right? Albeit it's implemented on the computer, right? So anyway, some of those comments. So I just kind of put that out there. Actually, before I go into that, people also mentioned there are some things that's on the assignment that's not necessarily covered in class, which, like I said, there's a lot of things. It's a pretty broad topic. There's a lot of things that are out there that, you're just going to have to look it up, because if I actually went through every single thing that may be on your assignment, keeping in mind I didn't put together your assignments, these lectures would be way longer than they already are. And the TAs would also be having much longer recitations, and we had to cover some detailed syntax for all the stuff that's possible out there. And that's why we have something like W3 schools. And you look at W3 schools here, look on the left-hand side, you can see all the different things you could potentially be playing around with here, right? And this is not even a complete set, obviously, right? Now, one thing I kind of put in here just as a quick search, maybe for the sake of argument, we didn't talk to you about how to uncheck or check a radio box, a radio button, I should say. Okay, so you guys remember the radio button, right? So you have like 3 or 4 choices, you only choose one of them at a time and whatever, right? So, W3 Schools is an invaluable resource. So if you don't know, you would just say, radio and then checked, right? In this case, you can say property, but I think if you just put in radio and checked, you'll come up to this page here, right? And then you can see this function here for check and uncheck, and you can see this try it yourself button here. So if I click that, you can see the code here that was generated. and you can see like what it looks like here on the right-hand side, very similar to like JSDO and whatnot when we played around with that, right? So you have like the red here, and let's say I can uncheck the red. I can check the red. So basically these buttons are checking and unchecking a radio button here. And so how did we do that? Okay, so you remember script here. Within the script, you have a little function, and within the function, you have a check and you have an uncheck, right? And you have this concept, document get element by ID, red, and then checked or unchecked. Okay. So just by looking at this example, you kind of get a couple of different ideas in general how you might do certain things that maybe hasn't been covered in class, right? Number one, how to reference a particular element in your HTML, right? This get element by ID red, right? This is your ID that's red here. So if you set that checked equals to true, then it will become like this checked here. If you uncheck it, means you set it to be false, then it'll uncheck it, right? Like that. Okay. And so how did you call this? You call this function from this button, this on click. Right. So I believe there were some students that actually had some questions about how do you call a function from on click? Well, this is an example right here of that. Okay. So these are basic examples, but it's out here. It's a resource that you should consider to look for in case you get stumped on something that maybe it wasn't exactly taught in class that way. Okay, so just a suggestion. Okay, so some people say, okay, what can you put together, right? So I actually, me personally, I actually have like a real estate website to deal with like little tools to do various types of calculations related to real estate. And I also have an e-commerce site. Well, actually, I have one for my karate school to basically get leads for the karate school, to sell equipment and stuff like that. And then I have a regular e-commerce site to sell stuff. The purpose of this class is not meant for me to promote my product, so I'm not going to do that. So I'll just give you some examples, right? And don't look at anything I'm saying. It's like promoting anything that I'm selling, okay? So for example, let's look at the real estate thing here, right? So you have like something like this, right? And this is something that just basically tries to project what your return would be for a particular property, right? So let's say I was going to purchase a property for, let's say 300,000. And for the sake of argument, I'm going to use a loan. Yeah. Let's say I'm going to put down a 25%. And let's say I get a 4.5 interest rate. And let's say my closing cost is 6,000. And yeah, 1,500 is a bit low for property tax around here. Let's say it's about 12,000. And your insurance is, let's say, about 1,200. And no HOA. Your maintenance is probably about 2,000. And then, yeah, we'll leave the lump cost like that. And let's say I can rent this house out for about 2,500 a month. We'll leave the vacancy there. And let's say I'm going to manage this property myself, so I'm not going to have a management fee. And let's see what that looks like. Right. And so we generate all of this information here. Let's say you hold on to the property for 20 years, your rate of return is 9.79%, your first year income and expense, and then this gets broken out year by year for everything. Okay, you can play around with this, right? But the point here is not to tell you like this is a great tool or something like that. The point here is saying that, someone put this together, right? And it's a model, right? When you're in business, you're doing analysis or whatever, you're going to be doing a gazillion different types of models, right? You're going to be modeling different things in terms of risk. You're going to be modeling P&Ls. So you'll be maybe doing analysis on various scenarios and whatnot. So this is essentially doing scenario for purchasing a rental property, an investment property, let's say. So you come up with a model, implement it with JavaScript, right? Put all this stuff in here and display it with HTML. And this is an example of something that you might do, right, as a business major, right? So this is for some of the people who kind of question, why are we learning these things as a business major, right? The truth is almost every industry has technology into it right now. Whether you're doing the data analysis, data analytics, whether you're just going into finance itself, right? All of the stuff, you're going to be like an Excel spreadsheet jockey. You're going to be dealing with huge volumes of data, processing it probably with Python or R, using various types of business intelligence tools, Jupyter notebooks, whatever, right? So, something like that is useful. Here's like a red bubble, right? This is an e-commerce place. Again, a lot of it is set up. You can just punch your stuff in here. It automatically set up stuff for you. So I happen to have something on here. I'm not going to tell you which shop is mine, but you can go into different things here. Let's say you want to do this one here, right? So to show the images, of course, you have your various sizes, you have the transactional aspect of it. I'll tell you the truth, I don't do much on the transactional side of things. Like that's kind of all built in here. But how you lay all this out, the images, putting in the reviews and whatnot, that's something. Okay, hold on a second. All right, sorry about that, a little interruption. One of the drawbacks of doing stuff at home right now. But anyway, you get the point, right? From an e-commerce standpoint, there's a lot of things you could be doing from a JavaScript HTML standpoint, okay? So I put that out there, food for thought. If there's things I can do to, discuss more about how you might look at various types of technology in whatever area of business you're going to study, feel free, check it out. Let me know. And I can give you my perspective because I've done stuff both as a pure technology person, as a business and finance person in a corporate, essentially investment bank, as an entrepreneur, e-commerce, marketing, sales, all of that stuff. They all have some technology component or aspect to it. Okay, so something to pay attention to and think about, right? You're not going to be doing a business major on a piece of paper, I guess, right? You're going to be using technology in a lot of different ways. Like I said, we can always challenge as to how we're going to use the technology and what technology, but there's going to be a technology component into it, right? And the technology component is constantly evolving. And you have to have some sort of fluency or understanding of technology and how it can support what you're doing from a business perspective. Okay. All right. So I'm going way longer than I wanted to. I wanted to keep this video kind of short. So I will be doing like the chapter 20 arrays very shortly. So stay tuned for that. And I will try to break it up, especially when it comes to Excel, because Excel is really a lot of the material I put together. I'm going to try to break it up function by function into much smaller videos. So hopefully, I've addressed a lot of the feedback that people have given But if I haven't addressed like a particular feedback that you're concerned about, make sure you send me email and let me know, and I will do so, try to address it. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time, and we'll be coming back shortly with the chapter 20 arrays.